Welcome back to the eighth video in our series on working with ChatGPT API for developers. We have covered text completion in our previous videos. In this video, we will explore chat completion and we will learn how to create a chatbot. When using the chat mode, we utilize the chat completion class. The key distinction from text completion lies in the usage of the messages parameter. Unlike in text completion, the messages parameter in chat completion allows for an interactive conversation with the model. The messages key should be a list of message objects in the conversation. Here we have one message object. Each message object should have a role and a content key. Roles refer to the different participants or speakers in a conversation. A role can be assigned to a system, user, or assistant. The system role represents a virtual assistant or a conversational agent. This is used to provide instructions, to introduce the context of the conversation, to set the behavior of the assistant. The system role is often used to provide a starting prompt so that it can guide the conversation. The user represents the person or the entity interacting with the system. He provides the input or the requests. It can be used to ask questions, make requests, provide any user-specific input. But the third role is that of an assistant. The assistant represents the AI-powered conversational agent. This is the chatbot itself. It generates responses based on the conversation's context. And this is from the previous messages. It also uses the instructions from the system. With all this, it provides the model's output or the response. Let's try how it works using a Jupyter notebook. In File, go to a new notebook and click Python 3. So this creates a new notebook. Here, you can go and change the name of the notebook. I have already named it as Chatbot. The first thing to do is to set the API key. So I import OS and import OpenAI. And in OpenAI, I set the API key to os.getEnvironment. And this is because I have already set my API key in the environment variable. I have set it as a system variable with a name open underscore OpenAI underscore API underscore key. You might have given a different name in your system variable for the API key. Please ensure that you've given the right variable name. If you have concerns on how to set the environment variable, this was dealt with in lecture 1 and you can get the details from there. Let me run it to see if my authentication is right. Yes, it has authenticated me correctly. Let me store my chat messages. Let's say chatbot underscore messages. And let me give the messages here. This is to signify the messages that are being passed to the chatbot. The messages have to be passed in the form of a list, and I have specified that. And inside, I have to have two keys. One is the role key, and the second is the content key. In the role key, there are three different possibilities as we just saw. In that, let me first start the tone for the chatbot and whisper into its ear what kind of a bot I'm expecting it to be. So the role is system. Since I'm going to whisper its context, and the content is you are an insurance agent. As the first step, let me create a chatbot for which in the OpenAI package, I used chat completion class and then the create method. Now I need to pass all the API parameters. The first parameter that I need to pass is the model. Ensure that you give the model which accepts the chat mode. For example, we have seen that ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo is a chat model, whereas text DaVinci 003 that we've been looking in the previous videos are all text completion models. So since I'm using a chat completion, I use a GPT 3.5 Turbo. Now the second thing is the messages parameter. And the messages I have already given it as chatbot underscore messages. So that is where my messages are going to start. So this is my starting prompt, in other words. This is a chatbot, so it can have a bit of randomness. So let me have the temperature to be around 0.7 and let me restrict the maximum number of tokens to 50. The response that I get is a response JSON, and let me get the response JSON in a variable called as response. As a first step, I'm going to get the input from the user. So I say user underscore input is equal to input user. To get the response from the chat model, I have to pass this user input. So I pass the user input as chatbot underscore messages. So in that, I already have the system message, which is the context, and then I append to it the user input. And this user input has to be in the form of a key value pair. We know that what it expects is a role, and this role has to be that of a user. So the role is that of a user because it is the input from the user. And then we have the content. And this content is nothing but what the user has just input. So next I append this to the system message. So I have the previous messages also. I now send two messages. That is, the system is supposed to be an insurance agent and the user has responded to it. So both I send it to the chatbot. Now let's see what kind of a response I can get. Shall we try running it? So I run this, then I run this. So it asks me the input. I just give a hi. Now let me print the response that I might have got from the chatbot. So I have this following response, and it has actually said, hello, how can I assist you with your insurance needs today? Now let me just take this part alone from the responses JSON. So I will print response. In response, I need to go to choices. Choices is again a list. So I need the 0th information and choices. I look at the 0th index. In that, I'm concerned about the message key. So I display the message key. And in that, I'm worried about the content. So let me say content and run it. So it says, hello, how can I assist you with your insurance needs today? What has happened is I have given the chatbot a system message and then the user gave a input and the chatbot replied to it. Now I need to make this go continuously, am I right? So I need an infinite loop for that. And let me put this response inside a function. So let me create a function for that. Let's say def generate response. I pass the messages to it, and let me give the response there. The idea is the messages have to be continuously passed to the chatbot, and we get the response using this, and get the so the chat response is, we've already seen it is response dot choices, and that the 0th index, and in that we want message, or we can just copy it from here, and we want content. And this function, let it return the chat response. Now, all we have to do is, initially the user gives the input, and then we append the user's conversation, and we send it to the ChatGPT. Now let's call generate response with the chatbot messages. Now, this returns a chat response. So let me have it here. I append the messages to the previous messages. This list of previous messages is now passed to the chatbot. Now let's print the message from the bot and let's have it here using chat response. Let's try to run it. And the user gives hi. So the bot says, hello there, how can I assist you today as an insurance agent? But this we want it to go infinitely till we specify some condition. So let's say, since we need an infinite loop, say while true, and put this entire thing inside the loop. To say when we want the conversation to stop, let's give end. So if end in user input, then you want it to print end of conversation, and then we want it to break out of the loop. Let's run this after making the modifications. So it says, let me start with hi. Hello, how can I assist you today with your insurance needs? I need a good health policy, health insurance policy. So it says, I'd be happy to find a good health insurance policy. Can you tell me a little bit more what your specific needs and budgets? Now I can keep going on. Like, for example, I can say, I'm a senior citizen, because I need to really know if it can give me a health insurance policy for senior citizens. It says there are many different types available and so on. So in this way, you can just keep growing your conversation. Now let me end it with end, and it says end of conversation. So what we have seen in this video is a very simple code to create a chatbot using the OpenAI Python library and the chat completion class. The entire code can be seen in the GitHub repo, which is given in the description below. Thank you.